Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. It's Abs of October Red back with news and reviews. I've got to start off this properly, and I've got to apologise for my stream that just kicked me out just as we was coming up to the end of the fight. I mean, talk about cliffhanger. Yeah, so apologies for that. I did say earlier on in the stream, and I kind of think I cursed myself, because I did say, oh, sometimes my internet plays up. It was playing up all weekend. And as soon as I saw DAZN start buffering, I thought, here we go. And that's exactly what happened. But I'd like to say a sincere thank you to those of you that did tune in while we were there. I think we got about, I don't know, about 1,200. And I always think if I get above 1,000 continuous views, especially when there's loads of other lives on, I'd say that's an achievement. So thank you to each and every one of you. I did put it onto subscriber mode only, and that was because I didn't want the bots putting in the links for the fight. But we're here today, aren't we? It's kind of the aftermath. We've all had time to like sit down, reflect. We've seen the posts, we've seen the comments on social media, and you know what we're here for. It's on the thumbnail, isn't it? We're here to talk about Frank Warren's card, Don't Blink, on Saturday night. I could go for the main event first, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave that till last. I just want to give like just a quick summary. I'm going to spend the entirety, or the most amount of time, I will say, on the main card, but I just want to like give credit and give thanks for what was a fantastic show. There was loads of fights on the card. I'm not going to reel off the whole card. You know what it was. Jalalov, I'd say his performance was anticlimactical. It was a shame that obviously Jared Anderson was out of the fight, because I do believe that Solomon Dacres should have jumped on the fight, jumped on the card and fought Jalalov. Whatever happened there, I don't know, but very anticlimactical fight. Jalalov, you know, fantastic amateur, but like I said, is it transcending into the professional game, or is it because he goes in between like professional and amateur that he's not quite settling into a style? You know, longer rounds, not duration of rounds, but longer rounds itself, all of that, the style, is it fitting in? Because this guy that, you know, he boxed, forgive me, I haven't got his name to hand, at some points he was, you know, he really stayed in there. Fair enough, however it ended, how it ended, so yeah, fair enough, no more. But I just expected better from Jalalov. Rafferty then, Jack Rafferty and Echo Esman. I think Echo Esman's last fight took a lot out of him. Let me just have a look. I'm going to quickly check on X, because I can't remember for the life of me what round that went in. So let me have a look. Jack Rafferty. You know me, sometimes I prepare, sometimes I do my homework, and sometimes I don't. Because when I started, this video was just going to be all about Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois. Let's have a look on the box rec to see how far this went. So he's a 27-0-1 fighter at welterweight, nicknamed the Demolition Man. Right, let's have a look. He was 6 of 12. Echo retired in the corner. Now, it's Echo's last fight. It just took way too much out of him. You know, Jack Catterall, I think at that time, was with Boots Ennis' dad, training with them guys. And that was just a really, really brutal beatdown that he took in that fight. And I do believe that took a lot out of him. That was in November. Obviously, what, 6-7 months later, he's fighting Jack Rafferty, which caused him to retire in the corner. I don't know if we're going to see anything back from Echo now. But what I would like to say is that he's been, you know, a credit to the sport and give us some really exciting fights, including obviously win over Josh Taylor, Ben Vaughan, Owen Cooper, Harry Scarf. Not Harry Scarf, we lost to him, Chris Congo, and Samuel Antwi, who we know is another really good fighter. But it's like, I just think it was enough. And I'm not sure if there is a comeback after that. I did say the Jack Catterall bout took so much out of him. But he loses to another Jack. This time it's Rafferty. Rafferty put on a really good performance, showed lots of boxing maturity in there. really, didn't really need to lay it on as thick. Because the basic boxing skills that he showed, the ring generalship, the movement, the shots, the way they were put together was enough to put the pressure on Echo Esman to force that retirement. I just noticed Jack Rafferty said that he had a serious illness and practically was not supposed to get through the illness, but he did, miraculously, and that was recent as well. And he came back from that, and he's gone on to win on the weekend. So shout out to Jack Rafferty as well. Brilliant performance from him. Brad Ray, another fight on the card as well. Really happy for Brad Ray, but commiserations to Liam Cameron. It was a really good fight. On paper, I thought it would be more competitive than it was. I think Brad Ray, what is he, about 26, 28? Let's have a look. How old is he? I'm sure he's under 30. Yeah, so I don't think he's 30 yet. Liam Cameron, and he got a TKO win in round 4. And I thought, what is up with our Liam Cameron? Yeah, fair enough. He had the fight with Jones on, I think was that one Magnificent 7 cards, on a previous Queensberry card anyway, where debatable on the win, but he got the W. But this time it was a TKO. It's sad to watch, actually. Sorry, as I take a sip of my coffee to keep me going. Sad to watch, but I'm really happy for Brad. Brad's been in some wars himself. Obviously lost to Lyndon Arthur. That was a 12 round. That was points decision. That was. Got a really good win over Shakan Pitters. Absolute war that was. I was there when he fought Tyler Denny and got the loss there. So he's had some good fights. A really good fighter, determined. I know he said that he moved away from a particular coach and then he's happy with this new coach. He's like an unknown, he would say. I can't remember the name of his coach. He did tell me, and I did meet him when he was just about to fight Lyndon Arthur. But he said he was happy with that move. Hopefully he's still with the coach and this information is still in date. But, congratulations to Brad Ray and commiserations to Liam Cameron. I think he put up a post on his socials as well today, just basically saying, here is the Instagram post. I've put so much, effort and I've changed my life around, which we know that he has. He's a really great guy. So it is sad when there is a loser. But in boxing, there's seldom draws and there's always going to be a loser. But the fight I want to talk about, obviously, and I'd really thought this should have been Cole Main now, looking back at it, was Zach Chelli. Well, Morrell Jr., Zach Chelli. What a scrap that was. And fantastic work by Zach Chelli. Zach Chelli has been on, well, I've seen him fight several times on the Boxer cards when he was with them. And for whatever reason, they decided not to keep him on. And then he was signed by Warren Boxing Management. And he's won. I was commentating on a fight that he did at York Hall under Warren Boxing Management. So they've still got him. And they managed to get him on this card at short notice for David Morrell Jr. Obviously, we know who he is. He's the exciting Cuban that all of us had high hopes for. Obviously, even after the fight that he had with David Benavidez, we was like, yeah, but that's David Benavidez. He took a risk quite early in his career. Most fighters wouldn't. And he took that risk against Zach Chelli, who is clearly underrated. Because I'll be quite honest and say I didn't think Zach would win it. I knew he'd be competitive, but I didn't believe at that time that he would win the fight. Like I said, nothing against Zach, but you just have your opinions. You think, oh, who's going to win? Who's going to, and I'm known to get my predictions wrong. I do it all the time. But I'm not ashamed of that because sometimes we get it wrong, don't we? But this fight, in the last round, Zach Chelli saw blood and went for it. And it was the culmination of shots. I think what a lot of people don't realise is when you take too many shots to the head, it's going to have an effect. And I think he knocked him out standing as well. He was standing up. He was out cold standing. So a great stoppage there by the referee, which was... Who was the ref? No, Howard Foster was the ref for the final fight. But yeah, great stoppage. But this is a question that I've got. And I did say this on the live. I don't even know if it broadcasted. But I thought, okay, fair enough. He's not fighting Callum Smith. This is Morrell, obviously, on the Liverpool card. Because Smith dropped out with an injury. Smith was like, yeah, fight to be rescheduled. Smith was even at this fight saying, yeah, you know, the fight's ordered, etc., etc. So it's got to happen. And then that happens. The fighter that is due to fight gets stopped. Now, obviously I don't know the wrangles, the tangles, the dealings of how boxing works. But this is the danger. And I'll go back to the Troy Williamson danger. When you're scheduled to fight a fighter, albeit the Troy Williamson one was a rematch and it was signed in. But when a fight is ordered, like with Smith and Morrell Jr., and Morrell Jr. goes and takes another fight and loses, that space is obviously lost now. So is there potential for Zach Chelli to fight Callum Smith? Is that something that Matchroom and, you know, Queensberry are going to come to some sort of agreement with? Is that the fight that we should expect now? Because me personally, I don't see any point of him fighting Morrell Jr. He took a chance. He jumped into a fight to get paid when he could have he theoretically could have waited till Smith got better. Smith says he's back in camp, and all of that has now flopped. So what's next for Callum Smith? I'd say potentially fight Zach Chelli. But speaking on Zach Chelli, there's an Instagram account, and I've reposted it in my Instagram story. So I can't remember the username. But basically, he clips an interview, I think it was from Boxing Now, where Zach Chelli said he would fight Ben Whittaker. They are 1-1 in the amateurs, etc., etc. I said to Frank Smith and to Eddie Hearn, I do believe that Ben Whittaker should have fought David Morrell Jr. as a replacement in Liverpool. Like back the fighter. There's no reason why Ben Whittaker couldn't beat him. And then look at this now. He gets beaten by Zach Chelli. So our Matchroom potentially, what are they going to do? Are they potentially going to match up Zach Chelli with Ben Whittaker? I don't know. There's some history there and I didn't realise it. 1-1 in the amateurs. Have a look. I'm sure the fight is somewhere on YouTube. And to be fair, you guys in the comments probably know this already and it's old news. But the main fight then, let's have a look. And I'm going to have a Daniel Dubois. I'm going to feed off or let you know what some of the media is saying, obviously, about the fight, what the headlines are. Written headlines, I'm not going to look at YouTube videos, being the hypocrite that I am. I'll accept the personalised ads because I'm not... Yeah, it's just kind of like what I was going to cover anyway. Right, this fight here. Fabio Wardley was given the WBO belt by Usyk because obviously he vacated it because he's doing some other stuff before he gets back. He's fighting Rico Van Heerden. When I say other stuff, he's boxing a kickboxer, isn't he, next week or whenever it is, 2 weeks time in Egypt, Pyramids of Giza. I like that. I like the way that's been advertised, to be fair. It looks really cool. And I was at the press conference for it. So, Fabio Wardley gets his belt because Fabio Wardley wanted to fight Usyk. That never happened. He's got the belt. Yeah, he could have had a mandatory, but he chose to fight Daniel Dubois. So it's voluntary. Yep, Daniel Dubois. That worked out. Fight got put on. We had a entertaining fight week, press conference, interviews where Daniel Dubois was, you know, walking out of various interviews. There was mixed reviews online. Some of you guys have commented basically saying that he was asked stupid questions. That's not my words, by the way. That's the words of the public. And then some people continued to obviously like ridicule him with what they say about him in a derogatory term, basically. I've met Daniel Dubois a couple of times and he's not the most like forthcoming, like out there. This is my experience of Daniel Dubois. He's not just gonna, you know, jump at you and be like Mr. Media friendly. That's just the way he is. He's very reserved, he's very quiet, and he'd be a lot of work for somebody like me to like sit down. I'd have to sit down, get to know him off camera, build up that rapport, and then speak to him on camera. He's not somebody that you can just off the cuff speak to, you know. Not everybody is like camera friendly or wants to engage in the media stuff. Yes, I understand its obligations, its commitments, but with Daniel, I think he's got this like tunnel vision. He just wants to fight. That's not his thing. And, you know, he's probably got people managing his social media, so he doesn't really get involved in any of that. And his main focus is to fight. So, yeah, we saw how the media week went. We saw Sam Jones and Mike Offo go at each other at the press conference. I was there at the press conference, but I was busy chatting to Steve Bunce. What a man of knowledge, just about the way of the boxing has evolved over the past 40 years. So I wasn't necessarily listening to those two screaming at each other. And I mean that when I say the managers of the fighters. So after I got to speak to Mike Offo, did a conversation with him. He basically aired his opinions, which are his opinions, he's entitled to them, and said that he believes that his fighter will win. The interview's out there, the conversation's out there. You can have a listen to it if you want or not. So that's where we stood. Now, thinking about the fight, Ben Davison had Anthony Joshua before, and obviously Don Charles was with Daniel Dubois then. Don Charles said to me, and it's on one of the interviews that I'd done with him ages ago, when I said, you do realise that Daniel Dubois is probably going to fight Anthony Joshua one day. And this was like probably about a year before it happened. He said, yes, but I know Anthony Joshua because I did some sessions with him, etc., etc. Joshua, I think, denied that. And then basically they ended up fighting. So the way that fight started is Dubois came out quick, very, very quick. He knows what Anthony Joshua was capable of. So what their job was to do was to nullify everything that Anthony Joshua came with. And we saw how that played out with the stoppage. Yeah. And that was obviously Daniel Dubois got the stoppage. And then obviously when he went in and fought Usyk, he lost. He switched his coaches, went to Sims, which I believe he was advised to do. And I didn't agree with that. But he found his own way back home. He went back to Don Charles and spoke about that. And Don Charles says, listen, all of this looking for a way out. And if you listen to the conversation, I said, look, Don, I've been guilty of it as well. We look at Dubois and think, is he going to want a way out? Or, you know, what would you say to that? What would you say to us to, like, you know, shut us up about that? And he said, look, you're going to see some, he's going to prove it. He's going to prove on Saturday that he's not looking for a way out. The conversation's there. I don't need to go into that. But he basically said, I'm going to prove you all wrong. And that when Daniel starts hitting his opponent, you know, all aspirations of winning are going to evaporate. That was kind of like the summing up of it. So you've got to think Don Charles trained Dubois and he beat Joshua, came out rapid. Now let's go over to Fabio. Fabio and Fraser Clark had a life and death for fight number one. Absolute life and death. To-ing and fro-ing, blood everywhere, an absolute battle for both of those guys. But when Fabio went in for the rematch, he says, nah, forget this, I'm starting quick. And he got Fraser Clark out there extremely early. And obviously you saw the injury that happened to Fraser Clark. Crazy night of fighting in Saudi, I think that was. So I said to myself, I thought Fabio's going to win because I doubted whether if Fabio caught him, was he going to look for the way out? And I've always put my hands up and said what I've said, but I've also said, listen, I get it wrong sometimes. So I just presumed Fabio was going to come out quick and Dubois was going to come out quick. But at the time, I was backing Fabio to win. But in the conversation with Mike, I said, I don't know. I feel like it was better when Fabio was the underdog because then he proved us all wrong. He's going in as more like a favourite this time. And I think that switched it. And therefore, that could, you know, do you think that could be like a curse? And I said that in the Mike conversation. And he was like, oh, no, we don't care what people think. He's not listening to that, blah, blah, blah. But I still think it switched the narrative. Sometimes I think fighters perform or tend to get what they want when the public is against them, not taking anything away from this fight. Because I really do believe that Fabio, believed in himself and that he was going to win. But straight from the get-go, we saw it, didn't we? It was a fast start from both of them. And I think it was in the first 20 seconds. I think it was the first 20 seconds or 30 that Fabio knocked down Daniel. And I was like, oh my God, here we go again. So he knocks down, he's on his arse. But he gets up and I think, oh my God, has he got up too quickly? But he hasn't, he's fine. And then we get a repeat of it in round number 3. But this time he knew he was unsteady, he took the knee, but he still got up really quick, even though he took a breath, but he got up really quick. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on here? Is this like going to be lights out? And obviously, as you would, and that is, Fabio's overhand, you get the confidence. You're going to get confidence from seeing that you've knocked down somebody twice. That's just normal. But I noticed that Dubois went back in the corner. Don Charles had a word with him and said, are you okay? You feeling okay? And he says, yeah. And he said, and then he started reading him the right act from then. That wasn't the 2 slaps. I think that might have been later on, where he gave him 2 bitch licks in the face, open palm strikes. You know how it goes. Wake him up, refresh him. I don't see anything wrong with that in fights. I've seen it done before. And I think sometimes if you believe your fighter's not listening, they do need that wake-up call. So I haven't got any issues with that. It's boxing at the end of the day. It's not a tickling contest, is it? There will be violence, as we saw as the rounds went on. Now, the one thing that I will say that Daniel is good at, and he did it with Joshua, he nullifies your jab, because I didn't see Fabio really able to lose his jab, because every time Dubois was like punching straight through the guard, and it was almost like he was targeting the nose. Obviously the jab is going to hit that part of the face. I get it. The science would suggest if you throw in a jab like that, it's going to hit that part of the face. But he just couldn't miss. To me, he was economical with his shots. He wanted to make sure every shot that he pushed out landed. I'm not saying that he didn't miss any, but he was more accurate and timed with his shots. After Slapgate, it's like he came out and he just literally switched on. His feet switched up, because the one thing I noticed is that he was never really in range for that backhand that was coming in from Wardley. So he made like Fabio miss that backhand so much. That's going to exhaust it, because every time you're like loading up to get that knockout, because clearly that's what Fabio was looking for, which he doesn't usually do. It's usually like a off the cuff shot that gets him. But this time it's like he was really focusing on getting that overhand right in, because he knows he had success with it. But he's burning out energy. Every time he's missing a shot, he's burning out energy, where Dubois' energy, even the size of him, I mean, he's built like a mansion, isn't he? He just didn't seem to get, the punches then stopped phasing him. And I can only presume that because Fabio was missing a lot of the shots, that some of the zap, the power, some of that even the timing was gone. So Dubois was able to take the onslaught of shots. But as the fight is going on, I'm thinking, I know what Fabio's like. He'll stay in there and he'll fight, and he was fighting back. There was a few times where it was literally to and fro, oohs and ahs, screams, all of it. The arena, even though I was doing a live watch along, I could hear the noise, the cheering in the arena. Boxing in the UK is second to none. The support that we have in boxing is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But that support may have contributed towards the detriment of Wardley. And when I say this, I'm conflicted as a fan, because as a fan, I want to see the blood, the guts, the gore, because that's what we want, don't we? It's a fight, and we can kind of anticipate what's going to happen with it. But then it got to a point in the fight, and I think, the doctor had a look at Fabio's face, not once, but twice. So the ref wasn't happy. But we know that Howard Foster has been heavily criticised by the public for stopping fights too early stoppage. Oh, Foster's there, that means we're going to get a safe night of boxing. That's kind of the reputation that follows him. My God, in this fight, did he do the total opposite? Now, you can sit there and think, oh, it was a world title fight. They're always going to let you push the barriers when it's world title fights. You know, both fighters belong to the same, you know, team. They're all under Queensberry's umbrella. So, you know, there's reasons why he could have let it run. Or did the public have his ear where he thought, actually, no, I'm going to take the brakes off a bit and I'm going to let these guys fight. But clearly he didn't look happy. I mean, I say that he didn't look happy. He could have potentially stopped it earlier. But the doctor looked at Fabio's face earlier on in the fight. So I knew Foster weren't happy about it. But then there was a round. What was it? One of the later rounds. I should have got the highlights up. And you guys correct me in the comments because I know that you will. Where Fabio gets up to start the fight, the ref's like, nah. But when you see Fabio walking, he's walking like he's drunk. He's really unsteady on his feet. And at that point, I'm watching, I'm thinking, yeah, they should probably stop this. But then the conflicted part of me, the boxing fan, wants it to carry on because it's like entertaining. So Fabio then comes back over to the doctor. You can see the doctor's uncomfortable, but he still like puts up his fingers, asks him whatever questions he asked him, and then they were okay to let it carry on. And then you hear the crowd, you know, you hear a silence, and then you hear them cheer, and it's us. We're like these vultures, aren't we, that just keep on flying around this body that's deteriorating because we want to see, like, I know it sounds kind of messed up, isn't it? But it's almost like there's a part of us that wants to see someone get stretchered out, you know? And it's conflicting because half of me wanted to see the fight carry on. And the other half of me was like, I think this needs to be stopped. But it wasn't. And Daniel came and just pursued the onslaught. There was no jab from Fabio. He was like looking for that last minute knockout, which he's been known to do, until the ref was like, you know what, allow it. And I think it was a few seconds into round number 11 where the ref says, I've got to call this. I've got to save the fighter. Brutal sport. Was it entertaining? Of course it was. It was a brilliant fight to watch. It really was, because I saw there's just so much in that fight, even from outside of the ring going into the ring. You've got all of these different personalities. You've got narratives that have been running with Daniel Dubois since the Joe Joyce fight, and the narratives kind of stick with you. And it's like, okay, Daniel's having to keep on proving himself, even though we saw it with Miller, even though we saw it with Hrgovic, even though we saw it with Joshua. The narrative was still there because of what happened in the Usyk fight. Yeah, he could have got up, he could have carried on. So the narrative was like still running. So it was fantastic to see him go in there and like nullify once again the narratives. But the skeptic in me, even though it's like, yeah, you can't say that, you know, he finds a way out anymore or whatever. The skeptic in me still thinks there are people that will hold on to the Joe Joyce, hold on to the Usyk, and then say, you know, he's still going to look for a way out. We've heard it before. But it was brilliant to see Don Charles clearly, you know, you do have Ben Davison, but you also have Fabio Wardley's original trainer. And this is one of the things that I wanted to pick up on as well. Ben Davison has received a lot of criticism. He's come out, he's the one that's put the statement out, but you have to realise he's in Ben Davison's gym, but that's not his core trainer. I can't remember the name of his core trainer. I'm really going to have to start taking coconut milk because my memory is shot, and I personally think it's getting worse, but I am getting older. Anyway, he's got a key trainer and nobody went for him. Everyone went for Ben Davison, and albeit Ben Davison is in his corner, that's his gym, there's a key trainer that nobody is held accountable for potentially pulling the fight, getting him out of there. But when you know Fabio is somebody that can go in there and pull off that last minute upset, does that make you have more confidence to leave him in there when basically looking at his face hanging off and saying, yeah, he can still go in there and win? I think there's a lot of reflection that will need to be done by Team Wardley. And listen, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a qualified doctor. But when you look at beatings like that, What are the long-term effects? I'm hearing that potentially there could be a rematch. I don't want to see that. And not because Fabio can't win, it's because the beating that he will potentially sustain again, that you'll have to go through. I did not think this fight was going to go to 11 rounds. I was presuming probably before 6, one of them's going to be out of there, you know. So does he need to have that fight again? I just don't think so. And the conflicted part of me, like I said, really enjoyed the fight, but the other half was like, I think they need to stop this. We've got to think about the fighter's health, you know, moving forward. So yeah, it's a tricky one. I enjoyed it though, and I'm very happy. I mean, commiserations to obviously Team Wardley, as I said, but I'm extremely happy for Don Charles. Don Charles has, you know, stood by his fighter. A lot of people have ridiculed Don Charles over the years as well, because he's quite outspoken, because he may seem eccentric to some. So I know that he's received a lot of criticism over the time, but like I said, I am not here for like a pylon, you know, to say ha ha to anybody. It's boxing. And the thing is, if Fabio Wardley wasn't stopped by the ref, he would have carried on and went out on his shield. So no one can ever question the heart of Fabio Wardley. Did he lose? Yes. Of course he lost. But the boxing fans won. So congratulations to Team Dubois. Let's see what happens with him next. And personally, I'd like to see him fight Usyk again. I want to see if Daniel Dubois can get the win over Usyk. It sounds crazy, probably, to most of you that will say Usyk, you know, he's unbeatable, etc., etc. But I just want to see if Daniel can do it. Because the only thing I think that will stop Daniel in that fight is just overcoming any mental battles that he has. You know? So that's a fight that I'd like to see. Let me know what you'd like to see next for both fighters. For all the fighters that I've mentioned today, once again, I've got to apologise for the stream cutting out on the weekend, but I just want to say a huge thank you to all of the subscribers, all of the commenters, everyone that gets involved all the time. I appreciate it. It really does help the channel to grow. Content this week, I am looking to potentially get a couple of conversations this week to pop up on YouTube. I've still got one to put up from American amateur heavyweight that came over to the UK that was there to watch this fight. Yeah, I think he's trained by his dad at the moment. He's potentially, after the Olympics, looking to turn pro. Will he turn pro in the UK or will he turn pro in the US? There's clearly a reason why he's in the US. He's shopping around, seeing who's going to provide him the best deal. So I'll put his stuff up as well. I think his name's Joseph. I've got it on here. So I'm going to pop that interview up. And also, like I said, there's a couple more that I should be doing this week. Thanks for all the questions for Frank Smith. I'll screenshot them and then we'll go through them. Because of my internet settings, because I'm having problems with the network, it probably won't be live. It'll be pre-recorded. So yeah, it is what it is. So ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the rest of your week. Look after each other. Definitely look after your mental health. If it's not good for you, just leave it alone and walk away. And you know what we say at October Red, don't we? Stay ready.